Let's jump straight into some genuinely spine-chilling territory today. In this explainer, we're unpacking a terrifying short narrative called The Dream Journal. Now, on the surface, sure, it's a gripping horror story, but as we unpack it together, we'll see how it actually deconstructs the real-world psychology of sleep, the absolute fragility of the human mind, and, well, our deep-seated need for control. We're going to see exactly what happens when a quest to master the subconscious completely spirals out of control.
So how do you know you're truly awake right now? I know, it sounds like a philosophical cliche, but seriously, think about it for a second. What actual physical proof do you have in this exact moment that you aren't asleep, vividly hallucinating my voice and everything around you? This is the exact deeply unsettling premise that our protagonist, a guy named Ted, wrestles with. You see, Ted didn't just want to go to sleep, he wanted to command his dreamscape. He wanted to pull the strings.
To pull this off, Ted started what he called the lucid project. The ultimate goal? Total mastery over his own subconscious mind. So he goes out, buys a nice leather-bound journal, and places it right on his nightstand. The methodology was pretty straightforward but required total dedication. Wake up, write down the dreams immediately, and train the brain to recognize the dream state while still inside it. It's actually a real-world technique, super common for lucid dreamers. But as you'll see, treating your subconscious like a trainable pet comes with some incredibly severe risks.
For the first 7 days, the project is a massive success. Ted is having the time of his life, flying through clouds, chatting with giants, and he's recording all these fragmented, wild adventures in his journal using a messy, hurried scrawl. But then, day 8 hits, and the dreams just come to a jarring halt. The silence sets in. He wakes up feeling totally rested, but his mind is, well, actually, scratch that. It wasn't just quiet, it was a complete void. It felt like he had been staring at a blank, gray wall for 8 solid hours. The vibrant dreamscape was just gone.
Naturally, he opens his journal to record this strange, dreamless night, and his heart absolutely skips a beat. Right beneath his last messy, scribbled entry from the day before, he finds a full page of elegant copperplate calligraphy. I mean, the loops are perfect, the ink is dark and confident. This definitely wasn't his handwriting. And to make it weirder, Ted didn't even own a fountain pen. Yet there it was, an impossibly poetic, cryptic message about a garden, a rusted gate, and a key buried beneath willow roots. His blood just runs cold.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because Ted does exactly what any of us would do in this situation. He tries his absolute hardest to rationalize it. He spends the entire afternoon frantically scouring the internet, looking for any clinical explanation to soothe his panic. And he actually finds one. He reads all about parasomnia, false awakenings, and a very real phenomenon known as sleepwriting. The theory goes that due to extreme exhaustion, or maybe a brain caught between the dream state and reality, a person might physically write down their dreams while entirely unconscious. It's a terrifying concept, but it's medically documented. So Ted desperately clings to this logic. It wasn't supernatural. It was just his own overtired brain short-circuiting.
The internet forums don't just offer him a diagnosis, though. They offer a game plan. The advice he finds is highly specific and totally practical. To combat this supposed sleepwriting, the articles tell Ted he needs to perform reality checks. Specifically, he needs to check a clock, because time rarely functions normally in a dream state. And most importantly, he has to change up his recording method. Move away from the physical pen and paper and switch over to voice notes. The idea is that by altering the physical routine, he might just snap that parasomniac cycle.
So Ted methodically approaches his next night, setting up a highly logical procedure to keep his grip on reality. Step 1. Remove the temptation. He hides the journal inside a desk drawer completely across the room. Step 2. He sets his phone to record audio all night long. Step 3. He performs a physical reality check, staring hard at his hands until he confirms every single finger is accounted for. And finally, Step 4. As he drifts off, he repeats a grounding mantra over and over. I am awake, I am in control. He is literally trying to force his conscious will onto the unconscious night.
But here's the thing about the subconscious. Logic and mantras can only do so much against what's waiting for him. At exactly 3 a.m., Ted jolts awake. He's sitting bolt upright in bed. His breath is hitching in his throat. And ringing through the dark, totally quiet room is a sound, a slow, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. The noise isn't coming from outside the window, and it isn't coming from his bed. It's coming directly from the desk across the room. The exact desk where he hid that journal.
Ted is absolutely terrified, but his rational mind takes over for a second. He grabs his phone with shaking fingers and checks the voice recording app. The waveform on the screen is actively jumping. It captured everything.
He hits play. First, he just hears his own heavy, deep sleep breathing. But then, the audio picks up a soft, melodic humming. It's a tune he entirely doesn't recognize. Next comes the distinct, heavy sound of a drawer sliding open. And finally, the undeniable crisp scritch, scritch, scritch of a pen nib moving over paper.
At this point, Ted completely loses his nerve. He lunges for the light switch, flooding the whole room with this harsh yellow glare. He looks over at the desk. The drawer is wide open. He creeps toward the journal. Lying right on top of the open page is a pen he recognizes, a cheap pen he had left in the kitchen, and written on the page, in that exact same, hauntingly beautiful copperplate script, is a brand new entry. It reads, "You keep trying to wake up, Ted, but the willow roots are deep, and the key is already in your hand."
It's a direct response. Whatever wrote this was actively listening to his mantra. It knows he's trying to wake up. Ted looks down, absolutely terrified of what he might see. And there it is, the horrifying physical evidence. His right hand, the exact hand holding the supposed key, is completely stained, all the way to the wrist, in deep, dark, permanent ink. The physical world and the dream world aren't just bleeding together anymore. They have violently collided.
Panic truly sets in now. He remembers the internet forums. He remembers the advice. Reality checks. If you are terrified, check your environment to prove you're awake. Ted looks over at the digital clock on his nightstand, but instead of the steady forward march of time confirming his reality, he sees the impossible. The numbers on the display are rapidly spinning backward. The very fabric of his environment is completely breaking down.
He needs one more check. The ultimate reality check. The one he performed right before he went to sleep. He looks down at his ink-stained right hand to make sure every single finger is accounted for. He counts them. But the count doesn't stop at 5. He stares at his hand, and he has exactly 7 fingers. This is it. The massive visual shock. The definitive proof. Every single clinical explanation, every rational step he took, has just been utterly, completely destroyed.
Which brings us to a chilling, deadpan realization. Ted wasn't sleepwriting. His overtired brain wasn't just short-circuiting and making him sleepwalk to the desk. And he certainly wasn't awake experiencing some wild hallucination. The backwards clock and the 7 fingers prove the ultimate horror of the false awakening. According to the journal and the reality he is currently trapped in, Ted hasn't been awake for a very, very long time.
And right as we process the sheer terror of Ted being eternally trapped in his own lucid project, the source material does something incredible. The perspective completely abruptly shatters. We are handed one final, unexplained sentence that just reads, "Jeff's got a blank look on his face, then threw himself on the floor and started screaming." The narrative violently shifts to a completely new character, reacting to everything we just learned.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering, totally mind-bending thought. Who on earth is Jeff? Is Jeff the real person and Ted was merely a character in his dream? Or is Jeff the entity that has been writing in that terrifying calligraphy all along? The story traps us in this recursive loop of false realities. It forces us to ask, when the layers of the subconscious are finally peeled back, whose dream are we really in? Think about that tonight before you close your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning everything, and I'll catch you next time.